bunny. Today we're talking about rabbit hay. Now, rabbit hay may seem like an extremely simple topic, but I assure you it is not. Those of you who have a bunny undoubtedly know how persnickety they can be when it comes to their hay. They might not want to eat it because it's either too wet, too dry, it could be too old, too tough, too soft. Maybe it doesn't have enough clover, or they might just be in a bad mood and not want to eat it that day. Some people wonder why they need to feed their rabbit hay in the first place, especially if they are offering a high quality pellet that might be high in fiber. It still does not equal the amount of fiber that they get from hay. Hay helps to keep bunnies' guts moving so that you don't have gut motility issues such as GI stasis, which can be deadly. And hay also helps to keep their teeth filed down. Rabbits' teeth, like our fingernails, keep growing and they need to stay filed down. And chewing on hay definitely helps with this. It also helps with boredom. They eat hay, they're constantly grazing most of the day. If they're not sleeping, they're often grazing. And so having hay and a variety of hay is very good for your rabbit's health and well-being. A question that I am often asked is, what type of hay do I get for my bunny? You know, there is Timothy hay, orchard grass, oat grass, alfalfa, and then you have the added complexity of first cutting, second cutting, third cutting. It's very confusing, especially to those new to bunnies. You have your first cutting, which is somewhat similar in texture and coarseness to this oat grass. So a first cutting in whatever grass you are buying is going to be thicker. It is going to be more coarse. It is usually less green, but it is very good if you need to give your rabbit something that is very high in fiber. Maybe they're having some GI issues, or if they really need to trim their teeth down, first cutting is a great option. So this is a second cutting. It is not Timothy hay, it's actually orchard grass, but it gives you an idea of the texture and coarseness and thickness. It is softer, it is usually greener than first cutting. Not as high fiber content as first cutting, but it still has an adequate average amount of fiber. And then third cutting will be even softer and greener. It has less fiber, but it can be ideal for rabbits that might be recovering from an illness and they might be hesitant to eat hay, or for rabbits who might have mouth pain. Probably the most common type of rabbit hay is Timothy hay. And that's usually what I recommend that people start with. It's very widely accepted and palatable. Most rabbits seem to enjoy it. So aside from Timothy, then you have your orchard grass. And that also can come in first, second, and third cuttings, although you often don't know which cutting it is if you are buying it online. You can also get an orchard grass medley or a mix that can contain things like clover or alfalfa, and that can help to alleviate boredom if your rabbit is getting tired of the hay that you've been buying. This is Small Pet Select brand orchard medley. So it is orchard grass mixed with a little bit of clover, and then there is a small amount of alfalfa in here too. Orchard grass also can come in first, second, or third cuttings, although a lot of the times when you buy it online, they might not state the cutting. I'm not certain what cutting this is. I would guess that it is probably second. It's still pretty green and it's not very thick or coarse. And it does have a little bit of alfalfa in here. See the blue flowers, kind of a bluish purple. And a little bit of alfalfa is okay. You just don't want to buy straight alfalfa hay. That probably would be okay for babies or young rabbits, but it is just very rich for most rabbits. And a lot of rabbit pellets already have alfalfa in it. So, orchard medley. And then over here we have an orchard grass that was purchased locally. This is a second cutting orchard grass. I would consider it a medley because it does have clover mixed in. And that is the reason I bought it, because to bunnies, clover is like bunny crack. They love it. they usually pick it out and eat it first, but it can help reluctant hay eaters. So I searched high and low. Whoa, that was a big jump. Carmen, she's acting crazy. So this is an orchard grass. So the third type of rabbit hay that you may be able to find is oat hay. This is one I had never tried with my bunnies before. It was something I saw that Small Pet Select offered. And again, I purchased it. It was not donated to me. And I wasn't sure what to expect. But as you can see, Carmen appears to really like this hay. Not all of my bunnies like it. It is, I would consider it like a first cutting, similar to a first cutting Timothy in its thickness. There's a lot of yellow in here. It's quite messy. There are a few oats left in the tops, but most of them have fallen out, so it does appear to be a little bit older. But oat hay is an option. What are the pros and cons of buying hay online versus locally? First and foremost, if you buy online, such as through Small Pet Select or Farmer Dave's, those are the two that I have ordered from and recommend to people. Obviously, it is super easy. I mean, you point and click and swipe your credit card, and a few days later, your hay arrives at your doorstep. It is fast. Usually it takes, maybe 2 to 3 business days to get your hay. And a second pro is quantity. You don't have to buy a huge 50, 60 pound bale and find a place to store it. And then what if your rabbit doesn't like it? You can buy a pound, a couple pounds. This is 20 pounds. You can even buy larger quantities if you know your rabbit's going to like the hay and you have a place to store it. So it's great that you can easily get a variety of hay types quickly and they're shipped to your door. Another pro is the freshness. Compared to pet store hays, the hay that I have ordered online is always fresh. I've never had issues with mold, and the bunnies always seem to like it. Now for the cons of purchasing hay online. Obviously you are buying something sight unseen, so you can't ascertain the quality, but I have never had a problem with either company. It has always been fresh, never looked moldy. That hasn't been an issue, but still you can't see what you're buying before you buy it, unlike purchasing from a farmer. The second con of purchasing online, and probably the biggest one for most people, is the expense. For 20 pounds of hay, I paid $50 compared to purchasing from a farmer, and you get about 50 or 60 pounds in a bale for $5 to $10 on average. So it is a lot more to buy online. You're paying for the convenience and for the variety. For some people, it's worth it. And if you only have a couple bunnies, I usually steer people to ordering online. It's just easier and you have a lot more to choose from. Now for the pros of purchasing hay directly from the farmer. Or you might be able to find it at a local feed store, but it is local hay. The biggest pro and the most obvious one is the price. As I mentioned before, a bale that's about this size weighs about 40 to 70 pounds, it depends on the hay, is usually about $5 to $10. Now that can vary depending on where you are in the United States. We are in a rural area, so it's usually under $10 here. But it's still a huge savings, $5 to $10, $50. Secondly, just like purchasing hay online, if you are buying it from a local farmer, it is usually quite fresh, and you can look at it before you buy it and make sure it looks and smells like good hay. It doesn't look moldy or smell moldy. Third, you are buying in bulk, so it will last you longer. And if you have a lot of rabbits, it usually is just a more efficient means of purchasing your hay than buying it online. But there are cons to buying bales locally. The most obvious is storage. Unless you have a dry, dark area to store at least one bale of hay, it is not going to be a good option for you. You want to be able to keep it somewhere dry so it doesn't mold. And if you get sunlight on it, it will fade, which isn't a huge deal, but some people don't have garages, or maybe they don't want the mess, and so storing it can be an issue. The second problem with buying hay locally can be sourcing a good quality hay that the bunnies will eat. As I mentioned before, they can be persnickety. And like you see, Carmen keeps jumping back to the oat hay. She likes that better. What happened to me last month was the farmer who I had been buying my hay from ran out of last year's supply, and this year's hay was quite different. We had a wet spring, summer, and fall, and the clover just wasn't there, and the grass just, it didn't smell fresh or look fresh, and the bunnies thought the same, so they wouldn't eat it. So we spent the better part of a Sunday going around to various farms, and we just could not find a good quality second cutting, either Timothy hay or orchard grass with a little bit of clover. And it is a bit ironic because we live in northern Ohio, we live in farm country, and we just couldn't find it. So what I ended up doing, and what I recommend those of you interested in buying hay locally to do, if you can't find anything on Craigslist or word of mouth or maybe a local feed store, what I did was I reached out to the local farm equipment dealer. They know the farmers well because that's where the farmers get their equipment and get parts. So I was able to locate a small farmer who did not use any chemicals, any pesticides, any herbicides, no preservatives other than salt on his hay, and he had a nice grass hay, which you see here. It's an orchard grass with clover. So now that we've gone over the types of hay and the pros and cons of buying locally versus online, how about a bunny taste test? Little Carmen here has been sampling the hay, and she definitely seems to prefer the oat hay versus the orchard hay. But every bunny has his or her own preferences, and it might change from day to day. I know this was a long video, and you're probably just as tired as Carmen is here, but I appreciate you watching. Hopefully you have learned something. Until next time, everybody have a great day.